It is the pink elephant theory. If the guest wants a pink elephant, get them a pink elephant. If you can't find a pink elephant, get a horse, paint it pink, convince the guest it's an elephant. Do whatever it takes to ensure they're happy. That's it. Are they happy? We are back. It is the Pink Elephant. I'm Chris Adams. Thanks so much for everyone joining us. It's another Tuesday. I have another amazing guest. Jon Chintanaroad is with us. Jon, thanks so much for being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
So, I think that Recruiting Accelerator, that is your company. And when we talk about relevant right now, I feel like it's an understatement with what's going on and the kind of the labor crisis that you're seeing across the board right now. I'd love to know, before we even dive into where we're at, how did you get to this place? I mean, what happened in your career that you went, at recruiting? Oh my God, this is an angle I have. This is something that we need. Maybe, I don't know. Did you work with a recruiter and realize, oh my God, this is something I want to do? How did you get here?
Yeah. So like most recruiters, I kind of fell into it by accident because nobody like goes to college and majors in recruiting, right? It's not a thing like that.
At like
And
14, you were like, you know what I want to do when I grow
yeah,
up?
yeah, I want to be a headhunter. Yeah, right. Kind of like I'm sure like real estate people, insurance people, they kind of fall into it too, right? I think the core themes that we're all like people persons, right? That sort of thing. But after school, I kind of walked into a temp agency, a staffing firm, looking for a job, and they ended up recruiting me to work for them. Like, hey, why don't you come work here? So I said, why not? I like connecting people and helping people find jobs. It sounds good to me. And so I did that, did well, worked my way from kind of a large staffing company to more boutique recruiting firms, because as a recruiter, you make a commission off what the company will pay you for the salary. So basically, um, the fee is typically 20% or
Okay.
25% or more of a candidate's first year base salary. So if you're a 100K guy, I place you, then the fee that my agency earns is 20K, which is cool because then my fee that I get is a chunk of that. So of course I want to keep placing higher and higher salaried people. Then one day I came in and they laid off the whole division. I think the company I was working for, the agency, was priming itself to be sold, and they wanted to streamline everything, so they laid off our division. And so when I called my clients to say, "Hey, sorry, I won't be able to send you any more resumes," they said, "Well, why don't you just go solo, and we'll sign with you." So that's what gave me the push to like branch out and start my own agency, right? I wasn't really quite sure at the time, 10 years ago, there were really no coaching programs or mentors that would help specifically with this. So I had to figure out a lot on my own the hard way, like trial and error, cut my teeth, made a lot of newbie mistakes, right? It cost me time and money. But over the years, I kind of figured it out and came up with a process that worked for me. And then ultimately, what happened was, I think year 5 of like running my own recruiting business, I had sold my agency to my partner, and a lot of old coworkers who worked with me at these other agencies saw what I was doing that had done pretty well, and they reached out saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm finally ready to branch out on my own." Some were recruiters I worked with, some were just non-recruiters. Like, "Hey, Jon, I've been doing tech for 10 years. I think I'd be a really good tech recruiter." Or, "I've been doing healthcare for 12 years. I think I could specialize in helping hiring managers find people like me. Like, do you think you can help me?" So just giving them kind of some tips here and there, and seeing them like achieve success like much faster than I did, just because I kind of showed them the pathway that I carved out for myself, was really fulfilling. So it was kind of like my way to give back. It was really fun, and then I decided to kind of go into coaching and just make this my full time thing. And so what started off as like one-on-one coaching type of thing now has evolved into this full-blown program that we have. With I have a team of coaches and client success managers, and we've now put over 300 people through the program, from all
Wow.
walks of life, both recruiters and non-recruiters. And yeah, and it's been really fun. It's a 6-month thing. We guarantee that you will make your first recruiting placement or commission, right, or your money back. So we have a really strong offer. We care a lot about our people, and we're really glad to kind of find this little niche in the market that we can serve people with.
How long have you been doing this?
Recruit with the coaching program 3 years now. So we actually started in March 2020. So right when COVID hit is like when we like launched. Funny time, but I think it ended up being okay because when people were kind of either out of work, unfortunately, or everyone's working remotely, now they had some more time and flexibility to try to carve out a side business, because most of the people we work with, they can start their own basically they can become an independent recruiter part time on the side while holding down a 9 to 5 job. And then once the recruiting commissions outpaces their 9 to 5 salary, they're always like, I'm out of here. I'm doing this full time.
For sure. How hard was it for you, transitioning from when you started, you were working for an agency and kind of watching what they were going through and when they started to streamline and they let off that division and all those things. When you transition from working for an agency to being an entrepreneur, right? Launching your own business, how big of a challenge was that for you? Mentally to transition from working for someone to now
Mm,
it's all on you.
yeah.
It works or it doesn't work. It kind of stops with you. How was that difficult?
It was right. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a huge amount of like imposter syndrome. Like I thought, why would, yeah, when I'm talking to or reaching out to VP or director level hiring managers, like why would they want to work with little old me, solo small shop agency versus the big staffing companies in the world, right, with more resources. But what helped me get over that was one, I quickly learned that companies who use recruiters, and the main reason why they use outside recruiters is because like big corporations, the Googles of the world, the Meta, the Salesforces, they have like a team of internal recruiters full time dedicated to going out and hunting for the best talent. But for most small and medium sized businesses, that's very expensive, right? They can't afford to staff a whole team of full time recruiters, so they rely on outside agencies to come in who are specialized and help them find their talent, right? So I found out that hiring managers don't really care about like who you are, like where you're from, how long you've been doing recruiting, even, or the name of your recruiting company. All they care about is, do you have a candidate for them? Like, do you have somebody for them? Right. And when I realized that, I realized, oh, I can reach out to any company as long as I can dangle a carrot, saying, "Hey, I have somebody who, fits exactly what you're looking for on your job description on your careers page, and they come from a competitor. They can bring a book of business. They just started looking for new opportunities. They're very familiar with what you do, and ask if I can make an introduction. Would you be open to seeing their profile? I'm happy to send you. Have you take a look? Right. That's very enticing for most hiring managers. So then once I got that, uh, I got out of my own way. Then it was kind of smooth sailing at that point, right? For the most part.
Yeah. I feel like honestly, for most individuals that are, for anybody that's watching or listening right now and they're debating or thinking about, man, I really want to do my own thing and I want to become an entrepreneur. I think probably the number one challenge that most all of us would say in the beginning is transitioning from knowing what you want to do to believing you can do it. Right. I
Hmm.
think it's like I think you said it perfectly of getting out of your own way. I think it's probably one of the biggest things that roadblocks that everyone faces is that getting out of your own way and actually believing that, you know what, I do deserve to be here and I can do this. So
Yeah, and it was even a challenge of how like that came up in our coaching program of the our clients that we help because at one point I was like, hey, I'm giving them all the right templates, the right scripts, the right process, even showing them how to leverage automation tools to like do client acquisition at scale on autopilot. But like some people were getting great success, a lot of people were, but a lot of people weren't, and then after talking to them, I realized it was a mindset thing. They just were like we talked about getting they're in their own way, and I felt like responsible for. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing enough to help them unblock their, whatever's the head trash they have in there. So for that reason, we kind of got lucky. I was able to hire a trainer who works with Tony Robbins' company, actually on stage, like with Tony, and he does Monday mindset coaching. So we are let's have a mindset call that has nothing to do with recruiting and just like set the tone for the week right, start off in a good mental state. So we have Mondays, mindset Mondays we call it, for that call. And
love that.
every day of the week we have a specialized coaching call for recruiting or tech, using tech, or I do strategy, right? But it was funny, I wouldn't have imagined that would be something that I would ever implement or need to, until I realized that anything that you do, I think, at a high level, it's mostly a mental game, right? Like golf or
Yeah.
professional athletes, right?
I think there's always two, and I get a lot of people that call and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to do my own thing, similar field to what you do. I'd love it. Can I pick your brain? Would you give
Mm-hmm.
me 10 minutes?" And my answer 99% of the time is yes. Like anytime I can try and help someone, I want to do it. And I always
Yeah.
find that after talking to them and they're, they're passionate and they want to do it, and I kind of watch their journey. And most of the time, you see them start to fall off, and you see them, you see that thing pop
Mm.
up on LinkedIn, and you get tagged in something that says, "Congratulate so and so on a new job." And I realize they've transitioned from "I want to do my own thing" to then taking a position. And that typically
Sure.
happens because there's that lull, right? Between you think you're going to launch something, you think there's going to be a line of people down the street because everyone wants to work with you because what you're going to do is better than everyone else's, and then it doesn't happen immediately. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that gap, and sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's a year, but there's a gap of how much do you really, really believe that this is a thing, and how long are you willing to let it ride, staying focused on the end goal and not caving and taking that next position that pops up because it just didn't work quick enough for you. And so it's interesting to hear, just from others that have pushed through and made it. Just that process of going from "I'm going to do it" to "Okay, I'm doing it," and it's I'm finding success with it.
Yep. Agreed. Like, yeah, I mean, the same reason why I think at the gym, like, we're pushing the holidays, like, the gym will be packed on January and February, right? Then March, April rolls around, then it cleared all the New Year resolution crowd gets cleared out,
Yeah.
right? And, it's like no fault. I mean, they come in with the great intentions, best of intentions. Hey,
Mhm.
this is the year where I'm finally gonna get my shape dialed in or get in shape. But then I think it's probably either a combination of like without the support, like unless you have a trainer that's waiting for you at the gym, you have to show up to an appointment. It's easy to
Yeah.
not do it or have excuses come up, and there's always things that can come up that will come up. And then also it's like maybe even the knowledge, right? Like they show up at the gym, but they have no idea how to use equipment, or they don't know how to dial in their nutrition, and so they don't get results and get frustrated and quit. So I feel like as coaches, like we're responsible for not giving them just a motivation and accountability, but giving them the practical tools. And then at that point, like at that point, we kind of stop there and we let people succeed or fail on their own, because it's like ultimately,
Yeah.
right, we don't take responsibility for that. But then I realized people still need like a kind of an accountability buddy, right? Like, oh, that's not enough.
Yeah.
So when we even have a dedicated client success manager that does one-on-one calls every month to make sure, hey, are you falling off? Where are you at? Because it requires a tremendous amount of support to have people go from like 9 to 5er to like successful entrepreneur. That's a big gap for people to cross more than. And usually people come to us when they've tried it. They're like, hey, I've set up my LLC, my website, my logos, my business cards. Now I don't know where to go from here. I'm stuck. Right.
The
So
honeymoon phase, the exciting part of I've created a logo and all those
yeah.
things start to
Right.
it falls off really fast when you don't have consistent checks showing up, for you to pay your
Or like, how do
bills.
you get a client, right? It's a first thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's hard. And I sympathize with people because I've been there, and I think people always are afraid to ask too. I had like mentors who I could ask, but I could like take them out to coffee once in a while or like pick their brain, but no one I feel comfortable like ask for help every day. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna bug this person." So um yeah, it's always hard.
It is, and it's also, it's interesting when you start thinking about being an entrepreneur and the things, what it takes to get from zero to actually finding success. And you mentioned something in there that was, I think, extremely important because we're dealing with it on my side with my clients as well. That says it's the what's the old saying? You could lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink it, right? And
Yeah.
it's you give the client the path to success, um, but they really care about one thing, and that's results, right? If you can't get a result from something, the journey of how to get the result becomes irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, it's really honing in on once we've given the path to success, what are we doing after that to make sure that we're constantly following up? We're scheduling weekly calls, bi-weekly calls, whatever it might be, to help make sure you're holding them almost accountable against that critical path to help them
Hmm.
really find the result. Because if they can't find results, then your value continues to drop as whatever your
Right.
business is providing. So to hear you say that you do weekly calls on that stuff, it makes total sense on why you continue to find success because you're ensuring that they're getting the success on the back end. So that's very cool to hear.
Thanks. Yeah, 100%. I agree.
So, what are you seeing now? When we talk about recruiting, you're seeing the labor market's all over the place right now with people struggling to find staff. The staff they get is not what they're really looking for. You're talking about the next generation has such a different mindset of how they work. What are you seeing? You're in the heart of it. What are you seeing that's in labor, the labor market as a whole right now?
Yeah, I think despite what happens with the economy and how it changes, I find there's always a demand for the best talent, right? And I think as long as there's demand, as long as companies are competing for the same type of high quality talent, there's always going to be a job available for those people, right? The top 10%. And there's going to be a demand for people to help them find those people, right? The recruiters. So I think that's always the case, and I can actually just prove it to people because people will come and say, "Hey, like, I feel like I've been, I'm a people person. I like helping my own friends find jobs. I feel like I could do this as a profession, even part time, but I'm not sure if there's even a need for this. If I heard that I see the news, companies are laying off people every single week, but then I'd say, hey, just go on LinkedIn, go to click on jobs and click on like United States, and you do that, you'll see that I think right now there's like 1.65 million job posts on LinkedIn. And these are paid job posts from companies struggling to hire the right people, find the right people that they're paying for LinkedIn for expensive premium posts to advertise their jobs. So 1.7 million across the US. And so if you are, and any recruiter knows that you only need a handful of clients to stay busy. If you have like 3 or 4 clients, each giving you 2 or 3 roles each, you have like a dozen positions to fill and you're slammed. Like you're good. And if you can make one hire per month or 20K per month, you're really good, right? So you only need like 0.01% of the market share of available jobs. And if you pick a niche and really just focus on that, then I think you're well positioned to serve those clients, right?
That makes total sense. Are you seeing one market, one industry that's
Mhm.
really outpacing others in regards to needs?
I've always been a fan of. I see like sales as something that's hot. I mean, tech is always there, right? But tech is hard to branch into unless you have a background in it, right? But with sales, I found that despite any economic situation, if the hiring manager sees you as a revenue generating human capital asset, then they're not going to be so shy to pull the trigger to make the offer, make the hire, pay you your high comp requirements, and even pay a recruiter to find you because they know the moment you come on board, within a short amount of time, you'll make back that money and then some. So you'll be a net ROI positive. However, other fields that are less tangible to measure, less to measure results like customer service or even like bookkeeping or things that they might say, oh, like we don't need that right now, right? So if you can position yourself, it doesn't have to be just sales. It can be like client success, which is sales support role, a sales engineer, anything that will help drive revenue, even marketing to a degree. If you can help marketing and drive revenue for companies, then they're more looser with the purse strings to make that higher because they know you are going to
Yeah.
bring more money than what they pay you.
You're seeing us, we do a ton on the hospitality side, right? And
Yeah.
hotels, leadership positions, even, I mean, down to your hourlies of trying to find service staff.
Hmm.
It is a challenge across the board in the industry. And it's funny, I was just with someone in another field, and labor came up today, and they were just saying, and even in their industry, they're struggling to find this, and so it's interesting that you're not seeing it in one specific sector. It's really across the board that you're
Hmm.
seeing. I hate calling it a shortage, as much as it is struggling to find the right fit, I guess, for organizations right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just the candidate pool, right? Like, I think, unfortunately, most, I mean, like, talked about large companies can afford to hire a team of in-house people and recruiters to go out and find people. So they're able to canvas and poach from other competitors and industry, counterparts, right? And like staff up really, really good people. But I think small and medium-sized businesses just rely on posting up a job ad on LinkedIn or Indeed and just every day going through all the garbage resumes of people who have no business applying for the job, hoping that the right person will come along and apply the job, and then hoping that their job offer and their company is going to be better than all the other companies they're interviewing with too, right? So it's tough if your strategy is to like pray that the right person will come along your careers post and careers page and apply, because the best people aren't on their couch unemployed sending resumes out all day. The best people are gainfully employed, heads down, doing great work, being compensated well, being well rewarded by their boss. And then like those are the people that everyone, those are the rock stars people want to hire, right? But you're never gonna get them to apply to anything. So it's
Yeah, it's a
challenging.
great point, actually. That's a really good point of the ones that you want, they're probably already employed for a reason. And those are
Yeah,
the,
it's like
like you
dating.
said,
It's
the
like dating.
rock
The ones that you
stars.
want are already in relationships, right? They're like, gosh, shoot, what? All the good
Yeah, I've
ones
been
are off the
single for
market, right?
35 years. Why is that? There's one common denominator here.
It's fun.
What do you think is next? What do you see? How much? Well, I guess lead with first with how much has you've brought up LinkedIn and Monster and different things. How much has social media and just the tech side impacted the recruiting piece of this?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer that from the perspective of both the recruiter as well as the candidate, right? So for a recruiter to do their job and get in front of more people, whether it's getting in front of more hiring managers to help or getting more candidates to recruit, the technology has definitely helped, right? So in the beginning, right now we're about to launch our 4.0 version of our program. So back in the 1.0 was what I did back then when I first started, which is smile and dial, right? Pick up the phone, start calling people, sending emails. And back then, people's phone numbers were listed on their websites, so you had a good chance of calling at least the main number and asking me to be transferred, right? But that worked back when you have 3 or 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day to do nothing but business development. But that's really a sticking point or a non-start for most people who have a 9 to 5, have family commitments. So then the 2.0, we leverage like automations on LinkedIn and email. So take the message that you used to manually email and type out by hand and just put into a machine and tool and let that send it out on autopilot. Once we did that, like it was day and night. Like all of a sudden, instead of doing cold reach outs, you only had to reply back to people who raised their hand and responded. So you're only talking to warm leads all day long, a lot easier. And at scale, it totally outperforms manual prospecting. But then everyone started doing that too. So then our 3.0, we started leveraging AI video messages. We were sending video messages that stand out from all the written messages. And that was really exciting. And the 4.0, we're able to launch all of that like built for you, so that way you wouldn't have to build it. Like because as we get more technical, the curve for people to learn gets more challenging, and people are like, oh, I'm afraid of that tech, or I'm really slow to learn this stuff. And so we're like, okay, we got to do it for you. So now it's kind of more of a we'll build out the whole business and your whole acquisition process. All the automations will just do it for you. So that way you have no excuse. You can just run, right? So tools have been very, very helpful for us and allow us to really evolve. And I think while we outpace our competition, on the candidate side of things, you mentioned social media, and that's something I think a lot of people don't realize is that when you apply for a job, like the first thing that we do as recruiters, we just look you up on Facebook, Instagram. We just start doing a little bit of a yeah, we
See,
start,
my
start
kids
creeping on
don't
yeah, yeah,
understand
yeah.
that I'm like,
We're creeping
please
your
pay attention to
profile.
what you're putting out there because
Yeah, but
people
when we see
actually
something
look at
that's
that.
like well, because here's the deal. I think what a lot of people don't understand, at least when you talk to a recruiter, is that when, as a candidate, if we submit your resume to a client, we're like vouching for you. Especially like, so we have like A clients, or our best clients have the best jobs to pay the most money. Then we have our B and C clients. It's like, let's just send our leftover people there sometimes. And when you come in to meet with a recruiter, like we're already gonna, by the end of the conversation, we're gonna put you in one of those buckets and say, all right, do I feel confident enough in you to put you in front of my A client? Because I'm taking a risk. If I put you in front of my A client and the interview goes bad, you make a bad impression, now all of a sudden, like my value, my stock goes down with that A client. So I'm not going to risk my reputation and relationship with my A client unless I feel like you are an A candidate. So if I go on social media, I see you post crazy stuff or unprofessional photos or anything like that, or we're on a Zoom call and like you look like you're working out of a messy like closet or anything like that, or I'm like, I'm gonna send them to my B minus client because I don't really care what they think, right? So if you sharpen up your social media presence and put your best foot forward, then they'll go a long way from like a job seeker perspective.
It is so crazy how much social media impacts so many different areas of our lives. And I don't think people really understand the value of what that is, right? Good and bad. And it's
Mhm.
amazing in your world. Such a huge piece of what you're looking at.
Yep, Absolutely, and then vice versa, companies too, right? Candidates, top candidates are have their choice. They can go into anywhere and get a job if they're the best of the best, and so they're going to be checking you out, your company page, your social media too, and see, hey, is this a company whose mission I'm aligned with? Because once you're talking about the top 10 percentile of talent, like money is no longer the primary objective, right? Like they earn, they all make a good living. Now they're looking for the right team, the right company, the right culture in which they can choose, and they're very picky, right, as they should be. So then companies are like, okay, how can we help them figure out how they can best be attractive to that top talent, which is why like we talked about, hey, even in the hotel wait staff, right, like they have challenges hiring good people, but if they were like the Ritz Carlton, the best of the best reputation, they have it easier, right, because they're known for being a good place to work.
How do you vet? It's easier on the candidate side of going through social and stuff like that. How do you vet the organization? Like when you talk about, I'm a huge culture guy, right? And what's the atmosphere and what are we living every day at the office? So how do you vet those companies? Because look, every company when you launch, you write down your pillars on a bev nap somewhere of like this is our mission statement. It's easy to write it down, but cultivating that and living it day in and day out, how do you verify that a company actually is who they say they are?
Sure, right. I think as a candidate, like what we will help them do is like, I mean, it really comes down to the interviewer, right? Because like for me, like I made a hire this morning for a second customer service manager that we have, a client success manager, and I'm always when I do interviews, I'm always framing everything as if they were the top 10%. So like I don't grill people like, hey, so tell me why I should hire you, right? Like or I don't make them jump through hoops. Hey, before you jump on the interview, I want you to fill out this questionnaire and record a video for me and jump through all these hoops because that would be, and then that's a mistake I think a lot of hiring managers make is they make them jump through hoops, thinking, hey, if they're good, they'll jump through my hoops. Well, if they're the best of the best, like they're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Like, why do I need to do that, right? Like I make an analogy between dating and recruiting a lot because they're both conjuring relationships from thin air. So if yeah, dating, if the person's like a 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, and you say, hey, Kia, come over, but I want you to drive. I don't want to drive 45 minutes to see you. You drive to see me. They're like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to do that, right? Like I got better stuff to do with my time. So you don't if the person's
Good
really high
point.
quality, yeah, you drive to them or meet somewhere in the middle, right? So similarly, if you can frame the interviews, the job process, the interview process, as if that person was at top 10%, then you'll get more of those top 10%. Meaning, like some people drag on too many interviews. Hey, we have interview number 6 with you here. A good candidate who is looking is going to be snatched off the job market in like a week. So as a recruiter,
Yeah.
we'll guide our clients saying, hey, I know that you don't really have this multi-step interview process, but my person, they're already on third round interviews or final rounds next week. So if you want them, they're only going to be on the market for maybe another 5 or 6 days tops. So what do we say? We condense the interview process and give you a chance to pick them up before they're off the market, right? So if you
Yeah,
can kind
that
of
makes
treat
that makes sense.
them, yeah, and they feel that too. They're like, okay, they get it. So for me, before I even so here's a tangible tip for me is I'm always hiring like salespeople or people who do my enrollment calls for me, and because I want to attract the best of the best, I made this 45-minute video recording, uh, and I send it to all of them. Say, hey, before we speak, feel free to watch this, and I break down everything. I show up, I show them the marketing we're doing, I show the financials. I say, here's on Stripe, here's how much money we've been bringing in, and here's our growth curve, and you can be a part of this. And like I show them, here's how much we pay for every book call on your calendar, and you can see here that we only pay $150, so we can print appointments on your calendar at will, so you'll never have to worry about being here on the phone and like not having appointments to call, right? Like I'll make sure your paychecks are 10K or more per month north of that, right? Like, and I'm very like, hyper transparent, right? And then on the call, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like no one's ever done this for us." Like when I saw that, I knew I wanted to interview here. So that was kind of my strategy.
Yeah, that's great. How much do you think? I heard you mention it earlier a little bit, but AI is becoming like the craze, right? In every different industry. Do you see it affecting what you do in any way? Are you seeing it affect even like I hate the idea of like AI is going to start taking jobs, right? But do you see
Yeah.
that as something that's going to have an impact?
It reminds me of like 12, 15 years ago when, because people have always been saying, that the technology is going to replace recruiters or replace a lot of people who, like a lot of people, right? Across different industries. But, they said that 10 plus years ago about job boards. Hey, like Indeed.com. Oh my God, people can just post resumes and hiring managers will just, pick from there. Like they won't need a middleman anymore. But that hasn't been the case because we talked about the best people don't apply for jobs. So it requires someone to actually proactively like hunt that talent down, bring them to the table for an interview, right? And then later on, when it came down to like specialized job boards, hey, this job board is they only focus on software engineers, so that's going to eliminate. It's so specialized that like there will be no need for software engineer recruiters. But same thing, not true. AI is going to be the same thing. It might help you kind of scan a resume or source resumes or make it easier or faster, but it's not going to replace. At the end of the day, when you're in a people business, you need a person who can listen, build rapport, build trust, persuade, convey, empathize, right? All that stuff. Until AI can do that, then I think
Yeah.
there'll be a need for someone on the other line of the phone
Yeah,
phone
we're
call.
looking at the
Yeah.
exact same thing of saying, look, how do we, instead of fighting this, how do we leverage it the right way? How do we take
Hmm.
advantage of it and say we still need our amazing people, but how do we make ourselves more efficient? How do we make ourselves, which in my world, it's driven on guest experience. So how can
Hmm.
I somehow use this technology to make us better at what we do, the human side, to give our
Yeah.
guest a better experience, right? So I think it's just a different mindset of how we're going to utilize it versus the idea of, oh my God, the world's going to be run by my server is going to be a robot, the bartender is going to be a robot. There's going to be,
Yeah.
no
Right.
one actually taking care of us. It's just a different way of doing it. So, what do you think is next then? You talked about you had 1.0, 2.0, you're about to roll
Mhm.
out 4.0. If you had to look to the future, what is 5, 6, 7, and 8.0? What's your best guess on the evolution of your organization? Because I know
Mhm.
what you're doing now is different from what you thought you're going to be doing on day one. There's
Yep.
some right there's something that's continuing to evolve and you flow with that. What do you think's
Mhm.
next? How do you see it continuing to change?
Yeah, the things that we're seeing already are people who, once they get their initial success, they've made one, two, three placements, made, they have extra 50, 60, 70K in the bank, right? From there, now they're like, okay, I want to grow. I want to scale from just being a solopreneur, one person shop to having a team. Because with most, I think all service businesses, including recruiting, there's a ceiling and cap on what you can earn when you run out of time in a day, right? There's only so many because recruiting is very time intensive. Like, these conversations take time, and you have to make a lot of phone calls, a lot of follow ups, debriefs, prep calls, offer negotiation calls, stuff like that. That it can eat up your whole day, and then you're realizing, oh shoot, I don't have time to go out and find new clients, right? And so you kind of stop taking new clients. Hey, I'm maxed out. I'm at capacity. I can't bring on any more clients, and that's where your income gets limited. So then probably the next version of our program, and what we're already starting to build out now, is how to scale your recruiting business so that way you can hire virtual recruiters, virtual account managers who can support you. And then maybe if you have 20 jobs to fill, you give those bottom 15 to your virtual recruiter who can do the legwork for you, the pre-screenings. And kind of like a doctor's office, right? You can become that doctor that goes in, does this a 5 or 10 minute conversation, but then let the nurse, let the front desk receptionist do all the scheduling, all the stuff that you don't necessarily need to do. And so yeah, so we've already built that out. It's called Recruiting Scale. It's really offered to people who have hit that level of success, but that's still, we're still early on in that. But that's probably going to be a big need once people need to scale, and they're like, okay, well, now how do I hire, how do I manage a virtual recruiter, how do I screen them and make sure that they're good, and what's the SOP for weekly meetings and stuff like that, right? So it gets more into becoming a leader and a manager versus a doer and working on the business, not in the business, kind of like that old saying.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you working strictly in US or is it global?
US, Canada, Mexico, yeah, just still in North America.
Got it. Are you seeing the market? Is there a difference between what you're seeing in Canada versus US versus Mexico? or is it consistent
Not
across the
really. I
board?
think the fees can vary, right? Some markets like you don't charge 20%. Some markets you can charge more. So their fees vary a little bit, but by far and large, like the approach is the same. Because at the end of the day, you are reaching out to an audience who has a hiring pain, right? A direct hiring manager who has a pain in their hiring process and offering a solution. And regardless of where you are, whether you do full time recruiting or part time staffing or hourly or a combination of that, right? That is the same type of approach. So as long as you can put yourself in front of, you can have the right message in front of the right audience and do it at scale. And then when you do get on the call, know how to have a good conversation and that results in a signed agreement saying, I will, pay you if I hire your person. And then of course, put your recruiting hat on and know actually the arts and skills of how to find that top 10% talent and to even get them to even take a call with you. Most talent won't even take, they're like, we hear all the time, hey John, I normally don't take calls with recruiters, but that thing you sent or the video you sent me really caught my eye. So when I hear that, I'm like, yes, this is an instant, we call them walking placement. If I get them get this guy an interview, this girl an interview. It's one interview, one hired. It's a done deal, right? Like I don't have to send them 10 people. I can send them one. So that's
Yep.
what we look to do.
If you could tell somebody listening right now that's like, man, I really want to do my own thing. I have a passion for whatever the industry is. It could be trying to go into recruiting like yourself,
Mhm.
or something else. What's one thing that you would tell them right now? Um, if someone, what's that one thing that you wish somebody told you?
When I first became like an entrepreneur or branched
Yeah,
out on my
yeah.
own.
When you were going to launch your first thing, what do you
Mhm.
wish, man? If they would have told me this, it would have helped me so much. It would have saved me time, money, whatever.
Mm. Yeah, I would say it would be like the information you consume, like you get what you pay for, type of thing. Like it took me like so in the beginning, in the first year, I just binge watched content on YouTube, and I would have like tutorials I would find online and guides and read articles to try to like figure it out on my own until I realized that most of the stuff out there is like marketing, right? It's like content, it's like 10% like value to 9% like marketing, right? And trying to sell you stuff. And so it took me a long time to kind of like piece enough information and Frankenstein it together to actually make it applicable. Whereas once I started, even you don't have, if you pay $20 and buy a book, that's gonna be better than watching most free content. And then taking a mini course or something like a $900 thing is going to give you exponentially more value than a book, right? So as you level up and invest more in yourself, you get more and more out of it, right? And so, and I still do this myself where I'm part of an annual mastermind for business owners in the coaching space, and I pay $68,000 a year to attend this yearly mastermind, which is I know kind of an insane amount of money. It was for me when I first realized how much it was cost, but the people that I met there, like the network, the value, the content, the connections, like I've already made my ROI back like within 3 months just from meeting that one person at that one event. Like because when you go to free networking events, right, get free content, you hang out with that crowd, and then when you level up where you hang out, the information you consume, you start hanging out with that crowd and the people above it. So that really helped me kind
If
of, I think,
man,
accelerate
if
our growth.
if I could take everything that you just said and bottle that up, believe wholly in two different laws. One is the law of association, right? Who we
Hmm.
associate with attracts, and that's the law of attraction of who we're going to become, right? And the second
Yeah.
thing beyond that would be the law of the lid that says if I'm always associating people that are doing better, are striving for more, then that's going to continue to push me to go above that, right? Wherever we cap ourselves at, that means everyone below us that we're
Hmm.
typically trying to associate with, that they're never leveling up. And so, man, invest, invest, invest. And I think when we talk about invest, it's not always just the invest dollars into stuff. What are we doing to invest in people? What are we doing to invest in our teams? How are we making sure we're putting them in positions and around people that's going to help grow and push them? If we're constantly putting them in the exact same spot with the exact same people in the same bubble, they will not grow. It's just the way nature works. And
Yep.
so to hear you say that and it be a testament saying, yeah, I did this and it was a huge investment, but because of that, we continue to grow as a company and you continue to grow as a person. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny when I went to this live event, the last one was in Cabo. I came in thinking, you know what, like, awesome. Like, you have to hit a certain revenue numbers to even be considered for the mastermind. So I'm like, awesome. I'm in the big leagues now. And they sat down in the giant reception room, and they're like, okay, we kind of organized the tables from size of your companies. And I was on the far left. I was like, and the far right were the people doing like $1 million a month in revenue, right? And I feel like I was on the kids table at the wedding. I'm on the far end. So I'm like, all right, next time I come, I want to start moving closer to the middle of that room so I can eventually be on table number 13, which is where all like the whales were, right?
Right.
So it felt, so I had to like, yeah, level up to a place where all of a sudden now I'm on the bottom of the totem pole of a much higher pole, right? So I'm still trying to work my way towards table number 13. That's my goal.
I mean, we got to have goals. At least you know what table number you're trying to get to, man.
Yeah, exactly. Work my way over there.
E- exactly. All right. So if people are wanting to get involved, they want to find you, they want to tap into your business, they want to tap into your organization, they want to pick your brain. What's the best
Mhm.
way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to recruitingaccelerator.com. We have lots of free content, free training to learn about what we do and the world of recruiting as an independent recruiter, get clients, making $20,000 placements. You can also find me on LinkedIn or type in how to start a recruiting business. I'm everywhere there too. So not a hard guy to find.
Man, I appreciate you so much for hanging out with us, spending time with us, and just dropping some insane knowledge for everyone. Um, we got to do this again. I think that this is a
Yeah. Like,
continued conversation and evolution of what's next.
no, thank you, Chris. This has been a lot of fun as well for me.
Of course, man. For everyone that's watching, thanks so much. I am Chris Adams, the Pink Elephant. You can catch us every Tuesday with a new episode, and you can find me at Chris Adams official or the website ellisadamsgroup.com, and we'll see everyone next week.